Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to learn how we can actually do a right click and a double click using Selenium. So we actually going to use this website for the demo purpose, and as part of the implementation, we're going to use actions class that going to help us to like mimic the complex user gestures for a right click or a double click, and also for the drag and drop that we already seen in the previous video. So as part of this video, we actually going to cover the right click and the double click on the web element. So on this website, you actually can see three buttons, and the first two buttons actually like related to the what we are going to do in this video. So the first button basically says double click me, and the second says right click me. So if you click on the first button single time, it won't do anything, but if you do twice, it will print a text. So this is how the functionality of the double click that it's going to perform with the help of this button. And let me just refresh this page. And for the right click, like if you just click a single on this web element, it won't do anything. Like button, it won't do anything. And even if you try to double click on this, it won't do anything, it won't printing anything. But if you just right click on this with the help of a control key, you can actually see your text. Okay, so these two buttons particularly referring or providing the functionality of double click and the right click. So we actually going to like automate these two buttons and going to implement this and going to verify how the buttons verifies or button looks like when we do a double click and a right click on each. So let's go to the IntelliJ, and I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to say double click, right click, and I need a main method, so I'm going to say. So now let's set up my Chrome driver with the help of a WebDriver manager class. So if you are new to this line, you actually can watch my previous video in which we explain about how we can actually set up the Chrome driver with the help of WebDriver manager class. And then we're going to create the WebDriver reference. I'm going to name it as driver. I'm going to say new Chrome driver. And as we are going to use this website, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to say driver, and before that I'm going to just maximize this page, and then I'm going to say driver dot get and going to pass the URL. So we are halfway done. So as I said, like we are going to perform these operations with the help of actions class. So we need the actions class object. So I'm going to create an actions class object, actions, then actions. I'm going to name it as action, new actions, and this basically needs your driver reference. So I'm going to pass my driver reference as driver. Okay, so we are good. We have created the actions class object. Now let's go back to the browser and let's inspect this first element. Okay, so this first element who says double click me has the ID as double click button. So I'm going to copy this, and it looks unique. Okay, let's go back to your IntelliJ. Now let's create a web element, and I'm going to say name as double click button. Okay, and I'm going to say driver dot find element to find this element on the web page using ID, and going to paste the value. Okay, so we have this double click button. Now we should perform the double click operation. So I'm going to use actions class object, and on this we going to say double click, and as you see, like there are two methods popping up, like one with the argument that is web element, and another without an argument. Okay, so whenever you are using the first one without an argument, you should use move to element first, like this, which basically takes your web element. So I'm just going to copy this, going to paste this, and after that you should say double click and then perform. So you actually can do this, or maybe if you want to uh, like uh, like reformat this code, you can actually do with the help of this again actions. Then instead of the move to element, you can actually say double click, and this time we, like in the previous code, in the previous line of code, we haven't passed any web element here because we already passed this to move to element method, right? But in this case we actually can pass the web element to this method. So I'm going to pass it at double click button and then going to say perform. So these two are very much similar. You can use either of the one to double click on a button. So we are going to use this first one first, and then we can see the second one. So I'm going to comment this for the execution. Let me add some weight so that we can actually see the difference while running. Let me add some weight here too, and then we can actually quit the driver. Okay, let's run this code. So we are not doing any validation or verification, because we can actually see the difference on the web page itself. Yeah, you can see the text after double clicking, right? So now let's try this way, like without move to element. I'm just going to uncomment this and going to comment this. Let's just remove this and add here and run again. This should work fine again. The one previously worked in a similar fashion, it should work. Yeah, it's working. So with this help of like two different ways, they are like having a very similar purpose. So we are able to double click on a web element. So I'm just going to comment this part. Okay, now we should try clicking, or you can say double clicking, or I would say right click on that particular web element. So again, I'm going to the browser and going to inspect this element, and this has ID as right click button. Going to copy this, and this is again unique. So let's go to IntelliJ, create a web element. I'm going to name it as right click button, and again with the help of your find element method, I'm going to find this element with the ID, and let's paste the value. So we have the web element, and also we have the actions class object. Okay, and then we are going to use actions class object, and then going to say, so whenever we are going to right click on a web element, there is a method called contextClick, and again it has like there are two methods with the contextClick. One takes the argument as your web element, and another doesn't take anything. So whenever using this contextClick, we should use the move to element. This is again very similar to what we did with the double click. Then we have to pass our web element object, and then going to say contextClick and then perform. Okay, and if you don't want to use the move to element, you can actually skip this, and you can actually write as contextClick and just pass your web element and then say perform. Okay, and I'm going to comment this for now. Let's add some weight here. Weight dot slip. Going to add some weight here too. Okay, now let's run this code. Okay, this should right click on the second element. Yes, so as we see, like with the help of this, line of code, we can actually do a right click on a particular web element. Now let's uncomment this line of code, comment this and run the code again. Okay. Yes, so there's again right click on that particular web element that we provided. So yeah, so as part of this video we actually seen how we can actually do a right click and a double click on a web element using Selenium. So thank you so much guys for watching this video. If you like the video, please do like, share and comment. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel, and see you soon in the next video. Goodbye.